Hey everyone, this is Wormatty. This is my second update log for Steamworks Extreme, rather. Gonna show you some shit that I've done as soon as the round finishes. Whoops. Beep, 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 beep. Relay ending chosen. Minigame 1. Stop music. Okay, good stuff. Right, I'll try that. Right. So here we are in spawn. You already know that that a mode is chosen automatically and some messages are printed to chat. Some brief talks on traps. I've changed the timing here on the oven trap so that in auto mode it uses the same timing as manual mode, because people found the auto mode confusing and too difficult. All of the automated traps now that have cycles, they run off trigger logic relays rather than logic timers. The benefit being that I can start them and stop them whenever I want to, and because they're on relays, their cycles trigger immediately. Whereas with a logic timer, they would only trigger, say, when the timer finished. Otherwise, I'd have to fire timer. And the benefit of this is that because everything starts the moment the course starts, you can be sure that the course is on like a repeating cycle, and every time you run the course, the cycle will always be the same. With the exception of randomized elements, of course, such as the steam in auto mode and also these wonderful elevator things. So yeah, kind of defeats the object there, but you understand. Rotating objects here, they don't start to move until the round starts. The reason for that is because if you have rotating objects, when their angle gets so large that the game can't kind of compute the angle anymore, it starts to spew errors into the console. On and on and on. So when the map is idle with no players, everything is asleep, and it's only when a round starts that these things actually start to move. I've done some work on the sprites. I've made them a little bit smaller and harder to kind of make them look a bit less obtrusive and more interesting. If I show you down here, then you can see these small red sprites, and they serve to just kind of tell you that something's coming towards you, because normally when these things have cube maps on them, they can be quite difficult to see because they're dark and they're on the same eye level as you. So it's just about kind of making small style tweaks and so on. All of this stuff is controlled by relays as well. The logic that randomizes the dropping of these things has been improved, so you shouldn't get many times when multiple barrels are falling. Previously these buttons could be multiple activated, but now when you shotgun them, only one side comes out. That's been improved. The timing on these gates used to be randomized in auto mode, so they used to go back and forwards whenever they wanted. But now they only have static timing. I found them to be far too difficult and unpredictable. And that's pretty much it for all the traps and stuff. I've made some small tweaks over here, but I don't quite remember what it was, to be honest. Anyway, so yeah, if you get to the end of the course now, you see at the top you have the team round timer, which I touched on in the last video. That is useful for people who like to get fast times. Well, if you reach the end of the map or past the finish line, it prints a message chat saying that this player has reached the end of the course. And that's useful for the activator because sometimes when you're playing, you like to know what's happening. And if people get ahead of you, then you know, you want to know about it. It's kind of abrupt if suddenly you get teleported somewhere and you don't know what's happening. And it also prints your personal time to chat. And the way that works is it gets the current time value from the team round timer and does some clever maths with it to work out the timer. And yeah, so that's quite useful as well. You can always open chat. And that's good because if you're waiting at the end here for other people to come, you might have forgotten your time. So it's good that you can open chat to see what it was. And if you like to get better times, then that's useful for you. You'll notice that the more times I go through this, it makes no difference. And that's because I'm utilising player flags. In VScript, every entity has what's called a script scope, which is kind of like a little storage area where you can put properties and so on. And in Steamworks Extreme, I store the fact that the player has reached the end, and I also store the fact that the player is on the low health challenge. The reason for this is because obviously I want to avoid spamming people and just sending loads of redundant messages to console, but also because if ever I were to respawn them or they died or put them into a minigame, I'd need to know if they were on the low health challenge so I can take it off them. And also low health challenge affects weapons, and weapons are preserved entities. They don't get respawned. So I need to take the low health challenge away from a player when a round resets so that they don't have it on the next round. The blue guy is not teleported to the end anymore. They can continue to play the course and try and kill people as normal. And the minigame has remained more or less untouched, but previously I was using set health on the trigger multiples to kill people, but at some point in Team Fortress 2 that stopped working. So now I'm using trigger hertz, which does actually work. Fantastic. I've also cleaned up the announcer lines as well, so that they're more appropriate. And yeah, so let me kill myself. I've silenced the music at the end of the round when a team is won, lost, or is a stalemate. That's because I felt that it interfered with the course music, and I may decide to make my own custom announcer lines in the future, or to repurpose some of the existing announcer lines. I'd like to show you the low health challenge. So, logic case, low health button. Right, so if I do... Oops. He's... Flipping Nora. You can see I'm being healed by a medic at the moment, which is very useful. If I do case, low health button, in value 1, watch what happens. Hurrah! We now have a lovely little training annotation that appears with a noise. The difference being that this is not using the training annotation entity, it's actually using the event. And the benefit of the event is you can add a sound, you can have it follow an entity, and you can also filter it so that it only displays to certain players. In this case, I filter it so it only displays to the blue players. Because if the red players, sorry, because if the blue person were to see it, it would be entirely irrelevant. If I go on the low health challenge, my health gets set to 50, and I can no longer be healed past 50, or in fact at all, by any medics, and I cannot pick up any health kits or anything. So it is in essence a true low health challenge. Any damage I take, I will keep until the end of the round. And if I go all the way to the end of the round over here, listen, you can hear this music at the moment. If I go into the minigame,
3, 2, 1.
The low health challenge is taken away from me. Oh, okay. My health is reset to full, and the music fades out. Now, the way I handle music is, I have a jukebox up here. I have an ambient generic for each music track, some for manual mode, some for auto mode. I have a logic relay, which is named relay manual mode. That does pick random on a logic case, and then it plays it. And the way I was fading out the music previously was, I was sending the fade out input to any ambient generics named music with a star. And you can see it in here. I think I've got the old outputs. No, okay, I haven't. That worked, but the problem was that if you send the fade output input to an ambient generic and it's not playing, then what it'll do is it will actually start it playing and then fade it out. So what was happening was each music track was playing at once and then fading out. So what I've done is I've used some code submitted to our tips and tricks channels by Burke, and I've created a function in this work in progress jukebox script. And what that does is it scans for any ambient generics named music, which have music at the start of them, which are currently active. Netprops, getprop bool active, and then it fades those out. So it only fades out the ambient generic which is being played. That works really well. The only problem is there's a bug. If that music has already stopped playing, then it's still classed as active by the game, so it actually restarts it. So what I'm going to have to do is build more functionality into the jukebox, which includes the length of the track and stops the sound file after a certain amount of time. I plan on expanding the jukebox script over time to maintain kind of global control of music, so that it iterates through the tracks sequentially and avoids playing the same tracks again, and also with the possibility of changing the music based on the intensity, i.e. the number of people who are dying. So if you're in a mode and as people die, the intensity of the music could change, or it could even change music tracks based on that. But I don't expect I'll be incorporating that functionality. That's just something that I might want to include in the future. So if we do smdo script main death run course ended. Oh, fuck it. I'll just do volume. Let's look at some of the V script we've got. So if you look in Hammer, there's a V script entity here, logic script entity for the jukebox, which contains all the script functions. And then if you look at the start of the map here, we have our main logic entity, script entity called script main. That has main.nut, which is the Steamworks Extreme main script file. And that is used for basically kind of global control of the map, all the elements and stuff. And the logic here, the low health challenge button, for instance, when somebody hits that, on pressed script main core script function toggle low health challenge. So in this script file, main script, we have an enum for course mode, unselected, manual, and auto. And it's worth noting that because this is attached to a logic script entity, logic scripts are not preserved. They get killed at the end of a round and respawned. So it means that this script file, all of its variables and so on, they all get set to default as well, which is very useful indeed. So we have state checks here. Is course active? And the way it does that is it checks to see if we're in stalemate, which in Arena is actually the round running state, and whether or not the course active variable is true. Is ending active? Is auto mode? Get the course mode and set the course mode, and so on. Here we have forward functions, which are used to kind of trigger logic. We have course ended. This is fired at the end when we choose a minigame, and that fires relay course stop to a bunch of relays around the course, which stops all the course logic. And it's we have another one, ending chosen, which sets ending active to true. These are used in conjunction with state checks. So if you have repeating logic, for instance, for example here, the ovens, what these do is, rather than being on a timer, it triggers itself. So after 5 seconds, it says if death run is course active, fire self trigger. So as soon as the death run course is no longer active, this will cease to function, which is extremely useful for limiting the amount of I/O that goes on. So if you look in Developer 2, as you can see at the moment, the course is active and there's a lot of I/O, but at the start of a round, there is no I/O whatsoever. It's very quiet. ish. Okay, and now we can see that rotating elements have just been started, and these rotating elements are things like the big cog room or decorative cogs. And then as soon as a mode is chosen, then the course comes alive. All of the logic relays start to play. And when an ending is chosen, everything winds down. So if I do TTE to test heli end red, and then I teleport delicious cake to the end, you can see now that the course end logic is slowly winding down. Sometimes it will be told to stop immediately. In other occasions, it will just kind of fizzle out. And now we only have the course logic for the minigame. Why this is useful is because if you're trying to debug issues with logic on your map, it doesn't help that you have a lot of other stuff going on at the same time. Also, it's very good for performance on the server. If you're playing a minigame, there's really no reason for the course to continue to function. And so that stops all the logic, it stops everything from being calculated. And also, if the map is idle, there's no need for it to be calculating anything either. You'll notice also now that I have a spectator camera in the minigame, and I can only switch between the players and that spectator camera. All the other spec cams in the course are disabled. This is convenient because if a minigame is triggered and you want to know what's going on, then you don't have to start going through all of the spectator cameras through the course to see what's happening. It does actually set the spectator camera target to the minigame, which is good because it kind of changes the spectator camera for you. Very convenient. So if we go here, back into the script, we have toggle low health challenge, which is hit by the button. And what that does is it checks the player and it says, hey, in their personal script scope, which is their little storage area where they keep flags and stuff, are they on the low health challenge? Is it false? If it is false, then it sets it to true and it puts a message in chat saying you have accepted the low health challenge. If it's true, then it takes it away. And the set low health challenge function says, hey, are you wanting to set it? Then if true, then set their flag locally to true, so we keep track of the fact that they're on the low health challenge, set their health to 50, iterate through each of their weapons, and add the attribute healing received penalty. And what that does is it adds a weapon attribute, so on each of their weapons that they have out, it will prevent them from being healed. I have to do that because it's not a player attribute, it's a weapon attribute. You may know, of course, that the escape plan, for instance, cannot... if a medic tries to heal somebody with the escape plan, then they can't heal them anymore. And I suspect that if I were a medic trying to heal them, then I would also see that message. And setting it to false, it sets their script scope flag to false, sets their health to their max health, removes the attribute from their weapons, and then that's just a debug line there. Clear low health challenge is a function that gets called on round restart, and that goes through every player, says are they on LHC. Actually, is it on round restart? No, I think it's on round ending chosen. Yeah, on ending chosen when a minigame is chosen. And then player reached end here is triggered by the trigger at the end. It says, is the course currently active? Because you don't want this firing when a win has already been initiated. If they've not already reached the end, it sets their reached end flag to true, sets a message in chat to say they've reached the end, and it displays their round time. So the way the round reset flags, the round flags work, the script scope is, whenever a player spawns on the server for the first time using the event player initial spawn, it says, are they a player? Yes, they are. Get their player instance, validate their script scope. What it does is it creates the script scope for the first time, because by default an entity does not have one, and then it does reset round flags, which is that function here. And that function says, create this table called round flags, populate it with a couple of slots named LHC and reached end. Are they a first time user? Do they have the round flags table in their script scope? If they don't, then create it and then return. However, if they do, if they're on the low health challenge from the previous round, turn it off on them and then reset all of their round flags. Why I'm doing it this way is because flags on the player or table slots are global. Because the player entity is preserved and does not get respawned when a round reset happens, if I were to set LHC, for instance, to true, and I didn't reset it on round restart, then according to the script scope, they would still be on the low health challenge. This is very useful for storing global flags. For instance, you could store a currency on the player. You could also store how many times they've reached the end of the course, how many times they've survived a minigame. You could store personal unlocks, things like that. Very useful for secrets and things which span multiple rounds. So it resets their round flag, and then if they reach the end or if they hit the low health challenge button, then it calls that function on them. Full script function toggle low health challenge. That gets the activator, the person who initiated the function. And the activator is, just like in logic, the starter or the initiator of the IO chain, the player, sets it on them. When they die, on player death, it removes the LHC from them. And that's important because if I respawn them later on, then obviously I don't want to have to check if they're on the low health challenge. So it's far easier to just take them off it when they die. Far cleaner. And then you'll notice down here there's a hook for arena round start. What that does is it detects when the game fires the arena round start event. It says, are there players on both teams? As in, is it a valid round? And if there are, it sets course active to true and sends relay round start trigger. And then that relay round start entity, which is here, is basically the initiator of the entire course logic. This says, hey, if the death run course is active and course mode is unselected, print to chat team, blue, walk forwards to play the map normally, and so on. I think there's another one here for red as well, messages to red. And the reason why I've got these conditions is because these outputs are delayed. Well, one of them is anyway. And so if the round were to end, in the meantime, then when this output is eventually fired, it checks, is the course still active? And if it isn't active, it won't display the message. That's very useful for avoiding displaying messages which are confusing and, you know, irrelevant, say. So yeah, that kind of gives you a rundown of the other things that the things that I've been working on. I'll go through the changelog shortly and briefly. This is a stocks file that I've created. It's basically a collection of commonly used functions that can be used by multiple scripts, things which make it easier to do stuff. So I've got this function here called show annotation, which I've created, which creates a training annotation event, populates it with all the properties that you want, and down here we have a visibility bit field function. This takes an array of players and then it creates a bit field which the training annotation uses to control which players can see it. Then we have these things here, clean event callbacks. This is a function which scans the global tables of event hooks and the like, things like arena event hooks on take damage, and any which are orphaned, it removes them. And this is useful because if you have a script file which is spawned on every round and you create these hooks down here, then these hooks, they get added to a global table in the game's virtual squirrel machine, and they do not get removed when the round restarts, so you have to remove them. Traditionally, the way you would do that is by using a function called clear game event callbacks, but the problem with that is that affects every script that's loaded. So if you have multiple scripts in your map and two of them call the same clear event game event callbacks function. Because these scripts are compiled and executed sequentially, one after the other, there is a real risk that one script calling that function could delete any of the hooks that have been created by another function. And this gets around that by only removing functions from the global tables, or callbacks rather, which genuinely do not exist anymore. It goes through the event table for the specified table name, and it says, is it valid? If it's not, it removes it. I don't think it makes any difference, because if you look at the code for the way the existing clear game event callbacks works, all that does is it just wipes the tables and resets them with empty tables. So this essentially is the same thing. It just goes through the tables and removes references. We have functions for displaying the round time elapsed. It takes a target name of a round timer, finds it, and then if it exists, it gets the values of the timer, calculates the minutes and seconds, and then it prints the chat on the activator your time was. We also have common functions here for printing to chats. These are useful because they're stored in global scope, which means that I can call them from any entity without having to direct my inputs to the main script entity that I've created. And we have helpers here for, is this player alive? Can I please get their Steam name? And create an array of players on a team. We look at the changelog. Things that I've not already demonstrated. The speed lanes. Oops. Are now slightly self-illumined. They're about 50%. I've only got one speed lane, and it's bidirectional. It works by applying a disciplinary action buff to the player, and also setting their maximum run speed to the maximum, which is 520. When I step off, I lose the disciplinary action debuff, and that automatically causes the game to recalculate my maximum run speed. Very efficient, and also this avoids having to use attributes, which should prevent interference with any death run plugins running. And I think this speed is perfectly sufficient for getting ahead of people. This is actually a script that you can include yourself. I'm making a bunch of death run scripts. All that does is it hooks on start touch and on end touch, adds the condition, and sets their maximum speed to 600, which is capped at 520. But the good thing about this is that you can just create a trigger multiple, include the entity script, and you don't have to do anything else, which is fan-dabby-dozy. Yep, things that we already know about. The custom teleporter, game text entities, which I talked about previously. Players on the low health challenge cannot be healed. I think I showed that. I did. Moving entities idle until the course starts. And we have entity and IO stuff. Spectator cameras, minigames, graphical. Some errors have been fixed in console. I'm going to be making a function which, rather than kills people when they're AFK, it just kind of kills them silently. Almost like when you're in a death run, when you're on a death run match and there's a plugin which swaps people over from teams, it does so silently. It moves people from team to team and it kills them, but they don't make any death noises. So I hope to create a function that works like that, so that I can just kind of silently remove people from the spawn area. I'm also considering making some unlocks, which can be chosen by the activator to kind of change the game a little bit, but we'll see about that. Yeah. So that appears to be everything, I think, that I can think of. So if you have any questions or you'd like me to expand on anything, then by all means feel free. If you're interested in any of the scripts that I'm creating for entities. We have, of course, the boss bar and health scaling scripts that I've already made, either of which I'm not likely to use in Steamworks Extreme. But we also have something I'm working on for Logic Case, which allows you to fire the inputs or the case outputs of a logic case sequentially by going through them, as well as other things such as the ability to like intercept, pick random shuffle, and pause them if you specified, say, a debug mode. So that means that if you're debugging your maps logic, you can prevent logic cases from being picked, and you can easily choose their outputs yourself. There's the player teleportation function, which is added to the trigger multiples and used to teleport people. Yeah, good stuff. So yeah, I'm very happy to share any of this with anybody if you'd like it. It's all work in progress, so I haven't uploaded it just yet. But it's been a very fun experience, I think. So yeah, I know some of you may want to see more changes to courses. Those are definitely coming. But I'm still having fun with VScript at the moment, and a lot of this stuff is going to be usable, let's say, in other projects, so I think it's beneficial. Thank you very much for watching my very long video.